Hi, I'm Bekki, Creative Director at Steele Stovell. You're about to listen to a conversation I had with business coach Nicola Wilkes, where we chatted about all the craziness of the last few months, COVID, and how to move forward with your business. I hope you enjoy.
So if there are people who are listening or watching this who don't know who we are, I'm guessing they're going to come from your channels and my channels. So for anyone who doesn't know what you do you want to give like a quick overview of
Yes, so I'm a success coach, high performance coach, and I work with predominantly women that are in the creative design industry. They might run an entire practice, a design studio, or could be a freelance business designer. They basically know that in their career that they have so much more to give. They probably reached a massively high level already, but they know that maybe they need to gain more time back from their working week. They want their businesses to grow to that next level. And typically my clients are just at a plateau. Wherever they're at a plateau, which is the most comfortable, dangerous space anyone can be in business. So it's about, like I say, wherever we're at, it's about breaking through that. So I work with them on their mindset and then create business growth.
Amazing. And so this is why we've partnered so closely over the years, isn't it? So we run Steele Stovell, which is a design studio, and we specialize in branding, but particularly branding with soul. So kind of digging out the soul and the honesty in a brand, and then trying to tell the compelling story behind it. And we find that so many of our clients have reached a really interesting point in their business. They might be looking to rebrand after years of amazing work, or they're a brand new business with heaps of excitement and energy, and they really need someone to kind of steer them through the next stages. So that's how we kind of came together, wasn't it? A good few years ago now.
And I think that's why we have these conversations that we literally go down a rabbit hole with. And we almost like micro coach within them, and we get so inspired, which is why we're sat here talking. But I think because of the way that I work, that especially when I consult on brands, and most of my clients, we tend to do that because it's how you win business more effortlessly. It's how you get out of overwhelm. But I think that's why the synergy between us as businesses is so, and business owners as well as women running businesses, is so in tune, because you want to work with brands that want to get to the DNA of their soul, like the crux of what they do, and it is anything but on the surface. And I think that's the difference. As a coach, I come at it with that brand understanding, so I know where the clients are heading, and normally it involves that we work together or we'll introduce a client, and I think that's why it works vice versa with us.
So at the moment we are kind of just coming out of full lockdown. I think Wales have now joined us. Am I right? So I'm in Surrey and you're in South Wales, aren't you?
It certainly felt like it today. I walked up the high street in my lunch break, and it felt way more energetic and
coming back to life now.
Yeah, there was a vibrancy out there today, I would go as far as saying, rather than I live on the high street, so you get that sense of what's going on.
Definitely. Because Wales have had a really long lockdown, haven't they?
Incredibly long, and I think we felt like we were so far behind everybody for so long. And I remember being on a neuroscience coaching talk. So it was all these experts from across the world talking about, okay, straight away as coaches, this is what you need to be watching out for. I think everybody thought we were going to be talking about, immediately what was happening. And they were saying, actually, it's not, obviously, to consider where your clients are right now, but it's not in the immediate instance that the worry is. It was about coming out. And I found that really, really helpful, because actually it played out exactly as they suggested. But there was some amazing advice right at the beginning. And even as coaches, it was about how do you direct, the heads of these companies, what are they meant to do with their staff? And it was like nothing. They take care of themselves first, and then they take care of their staff, then they take care of the customers. Because if you running the company can't take care of yourself, nothing else is going to work.
Definitely. How did you describe that to me? I think when we were at the start of lockdown, you were saying to me that you saw that as like oxygen mask on first, get yourself safe, and then you can help other people afterwards.
But it's the simplest analogy, but it works every single time.
Yeah, I found it really helpful. I think at the start of lockdown, we really felt that, as I think everyone did, there was that massive panic for the first couple of weeks, and all of those stages of different emotions that everyone went through, where there's just absolute kind of chaos internally as you tried to process everything. And then I think once we'd kind of settled into it, actually everyone felt like they were getting some kind of normality, some kind of rhythm. I think, you know, people got used to having kids at home, and whatever was going on in your personal life kind of got some kind of rhythm. But I do feel like as we've come out of lockdown, it's actually been a lot messier. I think every week we adjust to something and then it all changes again. No wonder people are feeling a little bit uneasy about what to do with their business. You know, it's if you're unsettled in your personal life and in your financial situation or whatever might be going on, it's, you know, it's a weird time, isn't it?
Undoubtedly. And I think this has come up recently so much with clients. So I think what I noticed straight away is my clients were good. You know, they had coaching consistently, so they weren't hitting this without the support. They knew straight away. It was like, come to me. I mean, coaching went through the roof. So it was amazing that in the beginning it was catching them in a really good place, in a strange sort of way to say that. However, coming through it and coming out, we've almost become displaced again. So it was more about us being in inquiry with where we are. And I think what I've been going through with clients so much is that sometimes the hardest place to live is in the question of what happens next, because we don't know what's coming. We wear the control freak badge. So I'm a control freak. I just had it with a client now. She said, well, I can't do that because I'm such a control freak. And I said, why do we wear this badge like it's our 10th birthday badge? Like it's something to be proud of, because it's one of the things that strangles us so much in business, is that we struggle to just sometimes live in the question. It's the hardest place to be.
By live in the question, do you mean kind of sitting in that space where you feel a little bit uncertain and you're not really sure what's coming?
The plates are literally moving beneath you, and you feel shaky and you're like, whoa, I can't see the way through this. I don't know why all of this, you know, I've got all these question marks over everything and I don't know which direction I'm meant to be going. Sometimes the hardest place to live is in the question, where you're like, yeah, I don't know what's next. So rather than going into fear around it, it's being in inquiry with yourself around your business. So saying like, okay, so what is next? What do I desire this to be? Like, is how it was what I want to go back to, or actually do I now think that I want it to feel something entirely different? Do I want to spend more time at home? Do I want to spend more time traveling? Do I want to spend less time behind my desk, more time behind my desk? Like, what is true for you? So about being in inquiry with what to do next. So being okay with being in the question, feeling uncomfortable is okay.
And it's such a weird thing, isn't it, feeling uncomfortable? I think we've probably all experienced so many different versions of that over the last few weeks. I mean, I know at first there was the uncomfortable feeling of like suddenly being confronted with having to stay at home, which for some people, you know, very lucky and have a nice home to be in and nice green space outside. Others, it's being in a tower block somewhere where you're all piled on top of each other and it's all very full on. And, you know, there's such extremes to that kind of being confronted with your space and your people and your family and everything that you've built, and suddenly having to take stock of that and think, am I contented with my lot in life? You know, am I happy? Have I got around me what I really want to have around me? That's quite a lot to be dealing with all of a sudden, isn't it?
We've asked a lot of ourselves, but being able to really be curious about that is where the expansion is. And like I say, I get told all the time, well, my business didn't succeed because I didn't have enough money, or my business didn't succeed because I didn't have enough time. And like I say, women are just so good at this. But actually, it's just your business probably didn't succeed because you didn't expand the uncomfortableness. You didn't expand into the mindset that requires us to be able to sit in this question with ourselves and think, what is next? Okay, so maybe my profit and loss isn't looking, you know, the balance isn't in the right direction. So what am I not seeing? What am I not doing? What can I do better? Being curious about what you can change. And I think that mindset has served, definitely I've seen a lot of my clients serve them really well. But also when they have hit those patches of, you know, things are suddenly feeling just more uncomfortable, maybe they've had to look after kids more or parents more, or, you know, whatever it is, and their work has taken less of a priority. That's hard in itself, because then we're in the balance of where do we put our energy?
And what do you think now that we've kind of come out of lockdown? We're out of probably the most intense part of this, I think, hopefully that's that bit over and done with. What would you advise people who maybe learned something about themselves during lockdown, or about their business during lockdown, or their life, or whatever it was, kind of having had those realizations? What would you now say is a good way to deal with that, and to be proactive about resolving some of those things? Or if you've discovered something you really love about your life, making the most of it.
I think we've all got to be allowed to literally grip and hang on to those decisions we've made, and not to allow ourselves to slip back into whatever it was that wasn't serving us, and to almost raise your hand and say, you know what, I'm going to be bold enough to say, this is the life I want to lead, or this is how I desire my business to be. Do you really desire to go and homeschool your kids from Bali 6 months of the year, and whatever it is you want to do? I mean, that was probably the most ridiculous thing to ever say to somebody 6 months ago. Now, if I turn around and said to you, I've decided to go and live in Bali for half the year, I'm going to take my kids with me and I'm just going to homeschool them, you probably wouldn't bat so much of an eyelid about homeschooling as you would have.
I'd be so on board with that now. I think everyone's had, something that struck me was, so I have a 6-year-old, and she was at home with me for the first couple of months. And then I was very fortunate that she was able to go back to school. But the time that I had her, I was so excited about the fact that it gave me a chance to trial something like that, because when in life do we ever get the chance to have a go at homeschooling? Like, you couldn't just take your kid out of school without massive repercussions. If you went into school and said, hey, this is what I want to do, they would give you such a talking to, and you'd have to be really committed to that before you could even test it out. I think it's been such a cool opportunity to try things that we maybe weren't able to do before. Even little things like, I had a friend who sent me a message saying that she was using her time when she would have been commuting to make banana bread, because she was at home and joined the banana bread bandwagon. And I think they were the kind of things you couldn't have experimented with before. She couldn't have just asked, can I please work from home a couple of days a week, because her boss would never have said yes before.
And I think there's that really strange paradox really here, in that we say we've all become a nation or a world where we just were doing what we were told to do, because we were told we had to go into lockdown, we were told we had to do this and only exercise once a day. However, it's also worked in that we're now being very much like, but I don't want to do that anymore. And now they're trying to get us back to the office, so to speak. And people are like, I maybe don't want to do that. And it's about, people are starting to realize that they are the creators of their own lives. I think what's next is, how do we find that balance going forward?
Definitely. I mean, we found a lot of our clients have found new ways of working that they're really enjoying. And I know one of the biggest conversations we've had with clients are those who've got big real estate. So, they're paying for enormous offices with huge numbers of staff commuting in every day. And they're now saying, actually, we're going to put that real estate on the market. We're going to get rid of everything, and we're going to use that money to invest in our team's well-being instead. We're going to host big corporate parties. We're going to have smaller gatherings of team members to bond. There's so much coming out of that's really, really positive. And I don't know about you, but I wrote a lot during lockdown. I wrote down so many lists and notes and things. Is that all your post-its behind you?
Yeah, that's my inspiration on the wall. That's lockdown.
Amazing. And were there big revelations for you too?
Yeah, hugely. In that, I think people have this assumption as a coach that you've got it all tapped. And I think what they don't realize is that the coach will always have a coach. If anyone on this planet is always going to have a coach and keep the coaching industry a business, it's the coaches themselves, because they know it's not a hamster wheel they ever want to get off in terms of having a coach. And there's always lessons to be learned. And I think I realized the biggest thing for me was, actually, whereas I have a dog and cats, and I was used to handing her over to the dog sitter, going off to work, traveling, which I travel a lot. And I realized actually those 2 or 3 walks a day have become such an important part of my thinking time. So we almost get so used to walking on the pavement, to concrete, the feeling of concrete underneath our bodies physically. And I've just got to this point where every day now it's, a must that I have to, at least in the morning and in the afternoon, if not at lunchtime too, in between some calls, get out and walk the dog and feel grass. I don't mean take my shoes off, just feel grass and closer to nature. So I feel like I have had another level of my own transformation in needing that connection. And that's the balance that enables me to sit at my desk and coach most of the day.
Have you seen the new program on Netflix with Zac Efron, the Down to Earth?
No.
Oh, it's amazing. I think you'd really like it. It's him and a friend traveling around the world, looking into different aspects of well-being and health, exploring different topics. And they talked so much about that in one of the episodes, about that connection to earth and how important it is to just ground yourself every once in a while. They also looked at the homeschooling in Bali thing, which was very interesting. I think it's really exciting that we're able to have these kind of conversations. Just you and I talking now, I think there are a lot of people who would have seen our kind of conversations as maybe a little bit hippie or a bit airy-fairy before, or whatever it is that, they can sometimes be a bit holistic, can't they? And I think actually it's so nice to see people embracing this way of thinking and working, because I know for me it's been a massive help, and it's been a constant. And I think having people that you can check in with regularly, whether it's a coach or not, whether it's just a friend or a mastermind partner or whoever it is, just having someone that you can check in with is so important, isn't it?
I have a mastermind group. We speak every Monday. We upped it in COVID without fail. And so there's a group of 4 of us. We all speak at varying levels. However, there's one of them, and we naturally, it's just because of our lives and the way it works out, but she's in Australia and we speak typically twice a day. We're just on the zone. Somebody messaged me. I was looking for a book coach, and I connected with somebody via a program in there. And I said, maybe you can't help me, you're in Australia. And she came back and she was really like, well, the time zone. And I was like, oh, no, don't give me the time zone shit. The time zone's fine with me, because I'm used to speaking to somebody at the start of her day, the end of mine, and then we switch it. So most days we speak morning and evening.
That's lovely.
Because we're just in that routine. It's just like a check-in, like, how are you? How did that go? Oh, how did that new business meeting go? How did your podcast go? Whatever it is. How did your mini intensive go with that new client? We are so accountable, and that we always say to each other, and it's hilarious if you listen to the end of our conversations, we often say, I am so grateful I get to show up and be vulnerable with someone that is so committed to my success, like they are to their own, and I am to theirs.
So I guess this is maybe the question around this subject is, if you went through lockdown feeling fairly in tune with everything, and making notes and making decisions and having realizations about your life, what would you say would be your one thing now to take that forward? What would you kind of translate that into?
Oh, definitely the power is in the pause for me. Definitely being able to, and whatever that is and whenever it is, whether it's a quick 10 minutes going out and deheading some plants in the garden, but feeling nature and being out there, or more time with my family, my kids, more time with the dog. Really, it's that basic. Like we get these animals in our lives, but how much, like, is dog walking just a thing we have to do twice a day, or is it a thing that we love?
And to kind of continue that, I mean, I guess lockdown was a pause, wasn't it? It was a moment to have to sit and think and be present. I guess then building in things into your day-to-day life that keep that practice up is a really great way of then taking that forward.
Even down to yesterday, I went and saw a new client, and it's going to require me to maybe be there a little bit more. It's a consulting client in terms of creating a brand, and it's going to be a lot of hands-on. And I actually turned around and said, I can do extra hours right now to get this off the ground. We can do weekends if we need to, but there is one stipulation, and I don't know what he thought was coming, but I was like, my dog's coming with me. And that was it. And now that's not an unusual thing. Like, why shouldn't she? The dog being with me does not mean that I show up in any lesser form, doesn't mean I don't do any of the work that I would do if she wasn't there. It just means that I don't desire to live a half life. And I'll show up as my very best self for you, but you know what? Here's my conditions.
That's amazing. And lucky Luna, she's going to be so happy.
He was just like, yeah, whatever. Like, the thing is, have we all just presumed that these things were a problem? What was it that was stopping us all being that bold as to say, this is what I desire to do?
why didn't we ask? Why wouldn't we push for that kind of thing in our lives? Is it a fear that someone may be promoted above you because you were awkward, or someone might not take you seriously because you care about your home life? I think that's been the biggest shift, hasn't it? Is that move from kind of embarrassment around having a home life. Oh my God, like existing as a human as well as a workplace person.
Yeah, the world of celebrities have been stripped bare, and we now all know that they have real homes and families, and that, yeah, they're real people. And I think that leveling has been just such an awakening for everybody.
Definitely. And what do you reckon for people who maybe haven't felt so awakened? Like, I guess that's the flip side, isn't it? Is, you know, there's going to be a big chunk of people out there who've had these big revelations and have had moments that have been really amazing during lockdown. But if you came out of lockdown feeling pressure from everyone else, you know, kind of feeling like everyone else has made big strides and you're not really sure what came out of it, what would you say then?
Here's the thing, you can't help everybody, and you have to go where you wanted, not where you needed. So from a coaching perspective, I hate the fact that anyone might not ever get that opportunity to live their best life or to allow themselves everything they really desire. But we have to know that whatever you are not changing, you are still choosing. It's still a choice. And it's something, like I say, you almost have to make peace with yourself as a coach, because you want to help everybody. You know you have the capacity to do that. Like I say, there's a saying in coaching, you go where you wanted, not where you needed. And it's because, like I say, we all have a choice. And it's literally that simple. We have a choice to stay where we're at. And I think there's still more opportunity for growth, and it's never too late.
And do you think for some people, maybe they are happy with their current setup?
That's the thing, is not everybody. There's certain clients that I have spoken to during lockdown that we've had a conversation. Even, I mean, I did a free month of coaching calls, and you know, these potential clients were talking to me about whether they carried on with me, whether they didn't. And I had a few conversations where I said, what I'm hearing is, you're happy. You are happy exactly where you're at. And this, you know, plateau doesn't have to be a bad thing for everyone. For some people, it's just not. For me, it's just not where I ever desired to be. Although I desire to make my life easier, I don't desire to be stuck in plateau. And for some people, they're just happy. They've worked hard. They've got to where they've got, and they're good. I think that's a great comment. And that's really empowering. It's like, you know, not everybody's going to want to, when I say push ahead, the other thing that I'm always really, really steadfast on is you grow your business without overwhelm and without fear. And most of all, you are having fun. You like fun growing your business. And that's what I want everybody to always take away. So I never want to work with anyone where they think it's going to be a slog and that I'm pushing them. I never want to be more committed to somebody's potential and their dreams than they are. Because that's why when you're okay with where you're at, that's fine. But if for anyone that's coming out of lockdown that feels frustrated they didn't make the change. I mean, I'm frustrated that I didn't get on my Peloton bike 5 days a week, every single week. But my business went through the roof. So, you know, I'm cool with that. But you can still, maybe your transformation is coming next.
I love that. I love that. So do you feel like you see this last stage of lockdown as plateau? Like as a moment for everyone to just sit where people have kind of sat still and taken stock of things?
No, I see it as a time for us to just not be so harsh with ourselves. Wherever you are, you belong right now. Whatever you are feeling, whatever roller coaster of emotions you're going through on a daily basis right now, just don't be hard on yourself. Just give yourself a break. We have all, as human beings, just been through something collective as an entire planet together that nobody saw coming. Hopefully we will never see again, but none of us know what's coming next. And I think it's just so important that we all just give ourselves a break. That we up the self-care, that we up the care of each other. We are more forgiving of each other. And I think this is one time where there's a book that I love by Gabby Bernstein, Judgment Detox. And I think it's something that I've become aware of, is that we all judge so much. And that book changed the way I think about everything, because we realized that everyone we're looking at, we're judging constantly, like micro judging. And when you just stop, you stop judging yourself, when you don't go to war with yourself, then you stop going to war with everybody else.
I love that. Can we link that book somewhere after this?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a brilliant book. It gets you to dig deep.
I wanted to talk a little bit now about things opening back up again. what this looks like for everyone. Because personally, this is the bit that I'm most excited about, most nervous about.
Why are you most excited about it?
I don't know, I guess, it's so exciting to be able to get a coffee again and to be able to go out and see people again and do things again, to have friends around to the house, all of that kind of thing. And business wise, I think that feeds in so much, the energy I'm feeling from seeing people, mainly because I get my energy from people in the first place. I really, really thrive on chatting and bouncing ideas around and all that kind of stuff that comes with catching up with friends. So business wise, I think that's super exciting. But then I think also just the energy of clients feeling super positive again, everybody just being so desperate to just get going. Everyone's raring to go.
It's like we've all been given a second chance at everything. But I mean, I think we were talking about this, but what about if your business was paused during lockdown? I mean, I've had some friends that run an amazing cafe kitchen, and due to the fact that everything's cooked in a wood oven, a wood burning oven, it just was not viable. They had to shut temporarily. They're back open now, thank goodness, and doing amazing takeaway food. But their business was paused, for example. So if you're one of those businesses that had to pause during lockdown, what might that be feeling like now coming out of it?
I can imagine that's super scary. I mean, we've had those kind of conversations with people. We work with some really amazing foodie businesses who have been forced to pause. They, like your friends, they can't function on a limited capacity. It's just not viable at all. But I think the thing that I'm seeing from clients is that they are just so re-energized and refueled and inspired. And I think a lot of people use that time really cleverly. I think if you were forced to pause, there's so much time and space and headspace more than anything to work on those things that have been at the bottom of the pile for so long. We worked on a lot of strategy stuff with people, prepping for the future, knowing that eventually things were going to open back up again, and just getting organized so they could hit the ground running as soon as things opened. It almost felt like getting everyone on the starting blocks waiting.
And I think you and I both know, because we share some of these clients, that there were some clients that came on board with me when I was doing the free course in April, and they have literally got their business ideas, wrapped their arms around them, and they've come to you and they're already creating their brands with a vision to go forward and actually take it to market. And that is in such a short space of time. So for me, that's amazing. It's that not only are there businesses out there that have, like you said, had the time to go in and do the work that maybe was on the back burner consistently, but really was really important. But there's also those businesses that have been created.
Definitely. And I was so inspired by the business owners who had that mentality, not knocking anyone who felt unable to do that kind of thing. I know a lot of people had personal things going on. I know people lost family and people had kids at home, and there were all sorts of complications along the way. But for anyone who was able to carve out that time to just sit and think and concentrate on the way the business was going to bounce back, I think there's a real determination and grit in that. And even if it's half an hour at lunchtime, popping to the loo and spending 10 minutes scribbling some stuff down on your phone at the same time, whatever it is, wherever that time was carved out, I think some really amazing ideas came out of that. And I don't know, the conversations that we had during lockdown were some of the most exciting I've ever had with clients.
And I think that's the thing, it's just the expansion, just the opportunity for expansion has been phenomenal. And I've talked to you a lot about the Kinetic theory, and it was something that one of my amazing mastermind partners, who's so incredible in leadership coaching, always talks about. And she, it was the first time I really delved so deep into it. And it's about the whole fact that with lockdown we were thrown into this chaos. It's not simple times, it's chaotic, and we shouldn't respond in the way that we've always responded to things. Lockdown and coronavirus meant that we needed to take on another way of behaving. So when you're operating in chaotic times, that you should really act fast and make sense of that. Did it work? Respond to it. If it worked, amazing, carry on. If not, go straight back to the drawing board, act again, get an idea, sense make from it? Did it work? Did it not work? And if it did, great, go forward again. If it doesn't, go back to the drawing board. And it's called novel practice. And it's just in simple times, we get the ability to sit around, say, for instance, take a meeting room full of people in suits, and they get the chance to say, right, for the next 12 months, this is what we're going to do. Now let's think about planning the best way that could be. And there's all this theorizing. We didn't have a chance to do that. And I think so many businesses actually, because they were broken out of this simple way of thinking, in terms of, like, say, this framework I'm talking about with the Kinetic theory, and they were thrown into chaotic ways of responding. That's when we get to be the most creative we are as human beings, because human beings are creative. We should always be in creativity. And we're lucky we work with creative businesses. But this was just such an expansive time for a lot of people.
I find that super exciting. And maybe that's what I'm feeling about opening up and everyone kind of coming back to it, is not only the energy to just be with their clients again, be with their customers again, be out with the public again. I think also the liberation that's come with all of this, you know, that feeling of like, all bets are off. You can totally do whatever you want now business-wise. Everyone is rallying behind you. Everyone's desperate for you to succeed. If you make decisive action and you say, we're going to do this thing, we don't know if it's going to work, we don't know if you're going to like it, but we're going to have a go at this thing. It's like a rallying feeling, isn't it?
It's like anything goes. Like, how incredible we get to have that power of thinking. It really occurred to me, there's a business on the way to the beach, because I don't live far from the beach, and it's a gorgeous, like, old sort of barns that have been converted, and you go there and they do this amazing food. And I realized they were doing takeaway, even down to the most beautiful box of vegan afternoon tea. Who would have thought before, and you could order brunch, everything, takeaway, but it was just so beautifully done. And I just thought, wow, like, that business would never have done it. They had a deli where you could go in and pick things and put them in a box, normal deli operating, if that makes sense. That this was on another scale, that coronavirus would just not have pushed any business to think, not outside the box, but in this case, in it. But I just thought that's where people could grow if they were willing to, like, act quick. Then sense, if that worked, did people like that? Yeah, amazing. We're going to give them more and more and more and more. And then now, so what happens now? How do these businesses that did ride it out, that did manage, this word, to pivot, that did manage to do it, what do they do now? So for those businesses, say, for instance, there's one business locally that I know was thriving the fact that they could put their food in a box. Another one just had to make that decision. And I totally understand why, that they couldn't do it until now. So what does it mean for both of those businesses now?
What I found really interesting is it's been such a leveler. There's such a level playing field now that the small independents can really compete with some of those big chains. The big chains who can't afford to put the lights on, they can't afford to have half capacity. And yet smaller independents, I mean, we've got a local cafe that does amazing Italian food. They had seating indoors for maybe 10 people, I think, before. And you know what it's like in a small local cafe. People sit and have a cuppa for quite a while and a chat. And so their turnover of people was fairly low, because people were sitting for such a long time. They might do the occasional takeaways. Now, because of lockdown, there is a queue round the block for this cafe, because they can turn them over quickly, because no one's sitting in, because they've really honed their takeaway offering, and you can just rock up, pick up your stuff and leave. You can pre-order, it's such a slick system now. How exciting is that they now are far more popular than some of the massive local pizza companies and big chain restaurants?
That's what's so amazing about it. And I also think there's a geographical sense to that maybe over here in the UK we operate differently. Like, say, I've talked about this, the mastermind partner that I speak to twice a day, I always speak to when she's on her way to get her coffee from this amazing kind of graffiti little side cafe where it's just got a window, an opening in the wall where she's pre-ordered it. She doesn't even ever talk. I'm like, have you got your coffee already? And she just goes in, grabs it. We don't operate like that as such here.
Not really, no.
And so what else is possible for us?
I think we live in a society that used to be super judgmental. We would maybe scoff at the people who'd brought their pet to work. We'd scoff at the people who'd got kids hanging on them when they're on a Zoom call. I feel like as a group of people, we are quite snooty about a lot of things, and we like things done a particular way. And I think this has been such a great opportunity for everyone to just go, do you know what? Sod the rules. I want to do things my way. And I think that's so exciting for business because it gives people permission to experiment.
So going forward, what's your reframe?
Do you know what I think? It's continue experimenting and don't stop. I think regardless of the business, even if you've been closed for the last 3 months, I think right now you've got people paying attention to you on a level that they probably never would have done before. Social media is absolutely buzzing because everybody's been spending so much time there. And I think if you can now really engage your audience and ask people to support you, and not like a plea, not like a pity support, very much like we want to try this thing, we believe in it, will you get behind us? I think kind of holding your hands up and saying, look, we don't know what we're going to do next, but this is a cool idea. Can we have a go at this, please?
When we hit lockdown, for various reasons, my 6-month coaching program wasn't usually running. You know, I'd had a bereavement in the family. I had deliberately and mindfully kept my existing clients going, but I'd taken a step back to allow myself to go through that process. So suddenly we were like, oh my goodness, we are overwhelmed. What do we do? How do we respond? And it meant that we actually came back with 3 offerings rather than 1, and things just snowballed. But I was honest and saying, I don't know how this is going to go, but we're going to try it. Like, I'm here for you, and I am going to show up as the very best coach that I can. I'm going to give you as big a container that I think makes sense to support you right now. Guys, I'm responding like you. It worked amazingly well, and it's totally reshaped our business structure, which is phenomenal. And even during lockdown, we've created a whole new side to the business with you guys, which we're working on the launch of. We're so excited. But for us, it was the pivot that we needed. And this is the thing, is that when we think in isolation, I was talking to you about this, that when we think in isolation, that breeds self-doubt. That's what I find, is that especially when I'm working with groups of people, community builds confidence.
That's such a nice line. I feel that's key now, isn't it? We've built communities around us, or at least I hope everyone has. I think lockdown gave us permission to connect with our neighbours, to connect with other business partners, to connect with even kind of rival businesses. I know, we've connected with so many other studio owners who have all kind of reached out to each other and supported each other. And there's a real companionship in that, and something really lovely about knowing people have got your back going forward.
So what do you think is going to happen going forward? Where do we wrap this up in terms of, we're talking about what's happened and where we are now? I mean, I think we've said it's a whole other conversation, isn't it?
It is. I think the key thing is energy. I think energy is going to be the driver. It's what you now do with that energy that's super exciting.
And I've got so much that I want to talk about based on that. But if there's one thing I would say straight up, but following on from what you've just talked about, is you can't own someone else's bad mood. You can't own someone else's negativity. Mm-hmm. So I would just encourage everyone to find evidence that disrupts that view.
I like that. Just find your own bit of positivity, your own energy.
Yeah.
I love that.
I've loved talking to you.
Me too. This has been great.